The National Desk, America's News Now. Tonight, trouble in Tinseltown as actors are called to walk off the set and onto picket lines.
And so it came with great sadness that we came to this crossroads, but we had no choice. We are the victims here.
Then the Southwest continues to bake with that unrelenting heat while the Northeast is drenched with the return of rain and floods. And whose drugs were found at the White House after all? Why the Secret Service is causing more cocaine confusion in Congress.
I just don't find the excuses on how we can't find out who had cocaine in the White House.
We begin with breaking news tonight. SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, has called on its members to strike. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez. This move comes as members of the Writers Guild of America are also forming picket lines and have been since May. Without writers and now actors, it's likely that production of your favorite show will be on pause, with both unions claiming the workers just aren't getting fair compensation, including royalty payments. And in a sign of the times, they also have concerns about AI threatening their livelihood. Actors last went on strike in 1980, but actors and writers on strike, that hasn't happened since 1960. Right now, more than half of the U.S. is blanketed with threats of rain, thunderstorms, powerful wind, and hail. Nearly 20 million Americans have a slight chance of severe weather in their area tonight, but the worst of it comes to the Northeast, which is still reeling from days of heavy rain. Vermont Governor Phil Scott submitting a request for a major disaster declaration to President Biden. If approved, it would provide federal support for recovering communities that are now preparing for the next round of storms.
I want to reiterate, this isn't over, and it won't be over after this storm. On Sunday, unfortunately, there's another chance for heavy rain statewide.
In the Southwest, meantime, more than 113 million Americans under heat alerts again today. The orange areas you see here, those are under heat advisories, while the magenta or pink areas there, that's excessive heat warnings in central Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and most of the state of California. Phoenix remains on target to break records of 18 consecutive days of 110 degrees or more in the coming days. Another record, it is possible that over the weekend, Death Valley in California could threaten the world's all-time record of 134 degrees held by Death Valley, set in July of 1913, July 10th to be exact. Following some breaking news now, as we learn that former President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has testified before the grand jury investigating Trump for his actions after the 2020 election. Many expect an indictment will come in the days or weeks ahead. Of course, we will update you as we learn more. And right now, President Biden is headed back to Washington, D.C. Earlier today, he met with Finland's president in the country's capital of Helsinki for his final stop in his visit to Europe. Biden used the trip to Finland to highlight NATO's growing military alliance and to again push against Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine.
Over the past week, we reaffirmed our unwavering support for the brave people of Ukraine as they defend their country against Russia's brutal and inhumane attacks. Our allies and partners around the world understand that this fight is not only a fight for the future of Ukraine, it's about sovereignty, security, and freedom itself.
During his press conference, President Biden called out Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville to end his hold of more than 260 defense nominations. The senator responded, saying the hold will stand until his problem is solved.
I'd be willing to talk to him if I thought there was any possibility of him changing this ridiculous position he has. He's jeopardizing U.S. security by what he's doing. I expect the Republican Party to stand up, and do something about it. They've in their power to do that.
It doesn't sound like anybody that wants to sit down and visit and work a problem out. It sounds like somebody that wants to argue about it. I'm not in this to argue. I'm just in this to try to be fair and do what's right, and go by the law, by the Constitution.
The senator opposes some policies, including abortion policies. CNN reports the Homeland Security Secretary will testify before the House Judiciary Committee later this month. House Republicans have been investigating Secretary Mayorkas for how he has handled U.S.-Mexico border issues with efforts to start impeachment proceedings against him. But migrant crossings have dropped significantly as of late. National correspondent Christine Frizell brings us a look behind the numbers.
Along the southern border, a new approach appears to be yielding new results. The number of migrants trying to cross the border falling sharply, according to those on the front lines, a reality expected to be reflected in the official numbers to be released in the coming days. Before the pandemic-era restriction Title 42 was lifted on May 11th, about 10,000 were trying to cross the border illegally every day. Preliminary numbers from CBS News show that's now fallen to about 3,000. The Biden administration touting more restrictive policies, like having migrants apply for asylum using the CBP-1 app before coming, also requiring them to seek asylum in a third country they pass through along the way, which critics say violates U.S. asylum laws.
The administration seems to be reaching into the dustbin of history and resurrecting a Trump administration rule. Our view is that, yes, we need to expand legal pathways, but we also need to protect legal rights.
Still, others contend the Biden administration continues to be too lax in its policies. Earlier this year, agreeing to accept 360,000 new asylum seekers.
They're sending a message, is very loud and clear to the entire world, is now is the time to come to the United States.
Former head of Customs and Border Protection Mark Morgan also arguing the numbers at the southwest border have simply shifted.
While the numbers in between have gone down, the numbers that they're pushing to the ports of entry have skyrocketed.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has also been using state resources to try to prevent migrants from coming, with plans to install a new floating barrier in the Rio Grande. So the number of illegal crossings appears to be related to some of these new state policies and those coming from the White House. Meanwhile, the one body tasked with writing and passing actual laws, Congress, does not appear to be making any progress on the matter. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizell.
A federal jury has unanimously found the Tree of Life synagogue killer eligible for the death penalty. Robert Gregory Bowers was found guilty of killing 11 people in the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history. The next phase of the hearing is for prosecutors to make a case of the trauma and pain inflicted on the Pittsburgh Jewish community, while defense lawyers will likely argue mitigating circumstances to avoid the death penalty. The jury will then vote again to either sentence Bowers to life in prison or to put him to death. The first over-the-counter birth control pill now has FDA approval. The French drug company Perrigo's once-a-day O pill, you see it here, will be available without a prescription at drugstores, grocery stores, even online. Now, as of right now, the manufacturer has not listed how much it will cost or when it will be on store shelves. And according to a new CDC study, more than 8.5% of kids ages 3 to 17 have been diagnosed with an intellectual disability, autism, spectrum disorder, or another developmental delay. The share of children with autism, roughly 3%, or an intellectual disability, more than 1.6%, didn't increase much. But more parents reported that their child has another delay, like cerebral palsy or struggles forming words. That group increased from roughly 5% in 2019 to 6% in 2021. Now to the crisis in the classroom. School districts and libraries around the country taking books off the shelves as book bans become more common. But in Washington state, one outspoken librarian is looking to reverse the trend. The National Desk's Jackie Kent has the story.
We are in a democracy that encourages a diverse range of voices.
While Kent Ridge High School librarian Gavin Downing preps his library for the coming school year, he performs a diversity audit of his collection.
It brings the world into the library for our students.
The former Cedar Heights Middle School librarian was in the thick of heated talks last year. A student and parent pushed the Kent School District to ban a few books with LGBTQ themes, namely Jack of Hearts and Other Parts.
Our kids do not need to have access to graphic sexual content or references to drugs and alcohol in the books they can check out at school.
Ultimately, the board voted to put the books back on school shelves, in part because they're not required reading and after the ACLU of Washington threatened legal action.
we believe that the decision to read a book or to not read a book should be a private conversation between a parent and a child and not be made on behalf of an entire student population.
We took their concerns to the Kent District Board.
In terms of deciding what might be appropriate for a certain age level, do you put that trust solely in the librarian, or how do you make those decisions going forward?
So our community needs to have a say in it, our administration needs to say in it, and our customers, which are our students, need to have a say in it.
Downing is now a vice chair for intellectual freedom for the Washington Library Association. He says there are still well-funded groups across Western Washington that continue pushing book bans.
And I think we need to be ready to come together to push back against these efforts.
Coming up here on the National Desk, could the country be turning the corner on runaway inflation? We'll break down today's latest economic report. And the end of the cocaine controversy, the Secret Service concluding their investigation. We'll hear what Congress thinks about that. And then speaking out, how officials are now responding to KKK flyers found scattered throughout a city just outside Nashville. We're back in 90 seconds. The Secret Service today notified Congress in a closed-door briefing that it was concluding its investigation tomorrow into who brought cocaine into the White House without identifying even a list of potential suspects. Now, the Secret Service narrowed the focus to about 500 potential people who could have left the drugs, but did not call any of them persons of interest. Authorities couldn't find any fingerprints or DNA on the bag containing the cocaine, despite a sophisticated FBI crime lab analysis of that bag. Surveillance footage of the area didn't identify a suspect either. Agents found the bag July 2nd in a heavily trafficked West Wing lobby where staffers go in and out and tour groups leave their belongings as well. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert told reporters that the service agents specified that the cubby where that baggie of cocaine was found, locker number 50, is monitored by the administration and the key for it is missing. The administration was fully cooperative with the investigation to find the culprit. Still, Congresswoman Nancy Mace spoke of the disappointment in the week-long investigation.
You know, it just seems like every time we have questions about something regarding the White House, either we're lied to or obfuscated, or there's just no end to finding an answer. And that just for me as a member of Congress is deeply frustrating.
To your money now, 237,000 people filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week. That's down slightly from the week before. Now, we've seen applications slowly tick higher over the course of the year as the Fed has raised interest rates. But overall, the labor market is considered strong, with more than 9 million jobs open right now. Also out today, the Producer Price Index edging up just 0.1% for the month of June. Now, this number is seen as a predictor for next month's consumer prices. Consumer inflation is down from its peak 9.1% to 3% this morning, just slightly above the Fed's target. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with China's top diplomat today. They spoke about a range of issues from peace with Taiwan to easing tensions worldwide. Now, this meeting took place as White House officials are blaming hackers out of China for accessing emails of U.S. government agencies. And we just learned a top White House official was one of the victims. The Department of Commerce and the State Department were also among the government agencies targeted in an effort to gain some sensitive information.
Last month, the State Department detected anomalous activity. We did two things immediately. One, we took immediate steps to secure our systems, and two, took immediate steps to notify Microsoft of the event.
The State Department is still investigating, and officials say they are monitoring networks and also updating their security procedures. The Federal Trade Commission has opened an investigation into ChatGPT maker OpenAI to see if that company violated any consumer protection laws. Now, according to the Washington Post, the FTC asked OpenAI to respond to requests ranging from how it obtains the data it uses to train its large language models to descriptions of ChatGPT's, quote, capacity to generate statements about real individuals that are false, misleading, or disparaging. New fears about what artificial intelligence means for the entertainment industry. The National Desk's Atra Elnashar explains why some artists say Congress needs to step in and protect their work.
Artificial intelligence has the potential to transform just about every industry. In the entertainment world, writers and actors say they cannot or should not be replaced.
We're having to show our power to remind the companies, hey, you don't have anything without us.
The Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of TV and Radio Artists, want studios to agree to parameters for using AI to generate scripts or mimic a real performer's voice or likeness. Those concerns extend beyond the picket line all the way to Capitol Hill.
This hearing will come to order.
During a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing this week about AI's implications for intellectual property, Democratic Senator Chris Coons demonstrated core questions the technology poses for rights of creators with this AI-generated song.
Creating new sounds and rhymes in a world where tech combines.
Did ChatGPT infringe the copyright of New York, New York?
Or did I just use AI tools to enhance my own creativity? And if so, should this newly created song be entitled to copyright protection?
Adobe is among the stakeholders calling on lawmakers to create a federal right to publicity law that gives creators the right to license the use of their work, meaning they can block AI training data sets from accessing it. Many artists argue state laws and current opt-out measures are inconsistent and insufficient. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn represents a lot of those artists in her home state of Tennessee.
You got to do something about this so that it is going to be fair.
A big challenge, machine learning models currently cannot unlearn content they've already ingested. Carla Ortiz, a concept artist and illustrator known for her work on films like Black Panther, says her name has been used thousands of times in AI prompts.
I have never been credited. I have never been compensated 1 penny.
Exploitation, she calls it. That's happening to artists every single day. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra Elnashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Things are ramping up for 2024. The first Republican presidential debate is next month, and candidates Chris Christie and Senator Tim Scott claim they've met the requirements to be on that stage. Now, to qualify, the Republican National Committee requires that candidates get 1% support in 3 national polls and 40,000 donors contributing to their campaigns. Other candidates who qualify are Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, and former President Trump, who has indicated he may skip the debate. Disgraced actor Kevin Spacey took the stand today in the ongoing sexual assault trial against him in London. During his testimony, Spacey called himself a big flirt, but denied the allegations made by the 4 complainants, who all claim Spacey assaulted them between 2001 and 2013. This was the first time the jury has heard from Spacey directly since the start of the trial. He's facing a total of 12 charges and has pleaded not guilty to all of them. As the U.S. grapples with cyber attacks right now from foreign enemies, Spotlight on America has discovered a little-known target that could be facing a major threat: education and research institutions. Why it matters and what's being done to prevent it, here's Lisa Fletcher.
If you're connected and you have an account and you use something that's online, you are a target.
Consider this a cybersecurity wake-up call.
I think we're all vulnerable.
Mark Ostrowski is the head of engineering at Checkpoint Software Technologies in Boston.
People are looking to attack us.
Those attacks include data destruction, embezzlement, and fraud that will cost companies an estimated $10.5 trillion in losses globally by 2025.
Who are the biggest targets right now?
Education, in research from an attacker perspective. When you think about a school system, it's a very transient kind of population. You have a lot of devices that are connected and unconnected, that they go home with teachers, they go away for the summer, they come back, and more folks can do malicious things because there's more things to attack.
An analysis by the Government Accountability Office bears that out. In 2018, 39,000 U.S. students' education was interrupted by ransomware. Fast forward just 2 years, and that number jumped to 1.2 million. And between 2021 and 2022, that number doubled again.
That amount of activity is increasing. In fact, the number of attacks this year compared to last year are up 30%.
Schools in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia have been hit more than 425 times with cyber attacks that have compromised more than 250,000 student and staff records.
You know what happens, right? You can get your data back, but it's going to cost you.
And much of that data, says Ostrowski, is stolen through 3.4 billion phishing attacks every day. Emails that lure you to click and then snag your personal information, passwords, and account numbers.
But when you click on it, it goes to somewhere that, again, is grabbing your credentials. Everything looks a lot better than it did maybe even like 5 years ago.
Like this email that came from what appears to be a U.S. Post Office account. It looks legit, but Ostrowski says it's bogus, and the embedded link is nothing more than a digital hook. The U.S. experiences more data breaches than any country in the world. And while companies are ramping up their prevention capabilities, even buying cyber insurance, individuals are left to sharpen their own tools and fend for themselves. For Spotlight on America, I'm Lisa Fletcher.
Coming up here on the National Desk, what public safety officials believe is the cause of rampant gun violence in Massachusetts and how state lawmakers are now planning to put an end to it. The National Desk's team of reporters bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, and tonight we start in Tennessee with the response to KKK flyers being dropped in neighborhoods, businesses, and black churches.
These are the flyers in question. As seen here, they were dropped off in the dark of night at several locations throughout Columbia on Sunday.
Don't be discouraged or dismayed that hate is in our community. It's been here before, but we have survived every time.
Tonight at Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church in Columbia, faith leaders spoke out about what they found at their doorsteps.
We received a message from the Old Glory Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, warning us they have, and I quote, "a dark history here, and because of you, a bright future."
The Columbia mayor telling Fox 17 News that this does not reflect the community.
I believe this event, as hateful and despicable as it may be, will allow the best of humanity and the best of this community to shine.
And State Representative Jeremy Faison says acts like this have no place in Tennessee.
We are created in the very image of God. And to think that you're above somebody that's an assault on God as well it is to those people.
Now over to Las Vegas, Nevada, where there's an increase in pedestrian deaths. In the past week and a half alone, 5 pedestrians have been killed on Las Vegas roadways. That's the highest number of pedestrian fatalities in a single month since January. The University of Las Vegas's Road Equity Alliance project believes that increase is due to several factors, including speeding, drivers who run red lights, and even the high temperatures.
If you're a pedestrian and you step off the curb because you get the walk light and you don't look to your left, it's not a fender bender for you, it's your life.
The Road Equity Alliance project says the best way to stay safe on foot is to keep your head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings at all times, and always assume that cars cannot see you. And over to Massachusetts now. Lawmakers there looking to update the state's gun laws. Despite Massachusetts having some of the strictest gun laws in the country, several cities there continue to be plagued by gun violence. Officials believe the issue is due to untraceable firearms known as ghost guns. Lawmakers are now proposing a bill to crack down on the sale of the parts required to make these guns.
We would allow them to conduct proper investigations as to where these ghost guns are coming from, and then increase penalties on those in possession of untraceable firearms.
This bill also aims to update some of the state's firearm codes, including how close to a dwelling a weapon can be fired. The bill will be up for discussion in the fall. Coming up, bad news for the lower 48, the dazzling display that will likely be blocked. That's next in 90 seconds. Sorry, a bit of a disappointment here for you celestial observers out there tonight. Your chance to watch the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, probably won't happen. Earlier this week, scientists said 17 states could possibly have gotten a glimpse of the light show tonight as far south as Maryland here in the U.S. But as the forecast got closer, it's now deemed unlikely that anyone in the continental U.S. at all will get to see them. There's always next time, or maybe you can take a flight up to Iceland. Someone is going to strike it rich. Who cares about the lights, right? The Powerball lottery is now worth an estimated $875 million, with the cash value just under $442 million before taxes. The next drawing for the Powerball grand prize is this Saturday after no jackpot winner last night. There have now been 36 consecutive Powerball drawings without a big winner. If you decide to test your chances, good luck to you. That's all for us right now. Join me tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. I'm Eugene Ramirez. See you later.